Our second fastest is Jeff Gordon, and he drives the number 24 Exalta Chevrolet. And our third fastest is Brad Keselowski, and he drives the number 2 Miller Lite Ford. I'll go to Jeff first. Jeff, obviously you won this first race 20 years ago, second fastest in qualifying. You got to feel good about your chances out here tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, no, I feel extremely good, excited about it. You know, I was in here yesterday and talking about how good our race team is and how good I thought our race car was going to be, and you know, today kind of proves that. I mean, Kevin was certainly very, very quick, and it was nice to close that gap a little bit on him that third session. But I feel very confident about this weekend. And starting on the front row is an excellent place to start. The track position is extremely important, and you know, I couldn't be more pleased with the efforts that we had today and in that qualifying session to get us that front row start.
Thank you, Jeff. And Brad Keselowski certainly gearing up to try to continue, get another win this season. You have 3 on this season. I know you'd like to get that 4th here at the Brickyard. That would be a pretty good slot on your resume, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you know, I think I've been very fortunate to win a championship, but you know, at this point in my career, I don't think I have any of the marquee race wins. And when you think of marquee races, you know, you think of Daytona, you think of Indy and places like that. And so it's definitely something that sits on you and you know, makes you feel like you need to get it done. And I think we've got a great opportunity for that. I think I figured out why Kevin was so fast. He's working hard, and everybody else, he's got sweat all over here. I didn't sweat that much. Maybe I.
That's because you got out of the car. Some of us, you know, stayed in the car.
All right, well, it works, man. Sometimes didn't work as much as I wanted it to today, but it's always scary when Kevin's fast in qualifying. You know, Kevin, when he qualifies well, you know he's going to be probably a dominant car in the race, and they've been really fast all year. So, you know, we're going to have to work hard to beat him, and obviously Jeff's been really fast. So, you know, been right there. We got to keep working on it, and I think we've got a chance of pulling off a victory here this weekend, so I'm very excited for it.
Questions? We'll take the gentleman right here, and then we'll go to Ed Hinton, and then Nate.
This question's for Brad. Brad, your car owner's got 15 wins here at this track in the Indy 500, but he has yet to win the Brickyard 400. Has he talked to you about wanting to win this race? Has he said anything to you, or is it just...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's the last thing left on the Penske bucket list, and, you know, I think that's why you see a third car here with Juan Pablo Montoya. He wants to make it happen, and Juan is certainly known for his talents here at Indianapolis Speedway. So, you know, he's all in as much as you can be, right? And it would be a huge honor to be the guy that pulls it off for him, and we're going to give it our best as we do every year. You know, it's not just this year that it's important to him, it's every year that it's important to him.
Let's go to Ed Hinton.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. One for Jeff, one quick one for Brad. Jeff, you were talking about the other day about the years when the winner of this race has gone on to win the championship and why. With the first 3 sitting there, with Kevin, you, and Brad, does this, at least the first 3, shape up? It's been some years since that happened, but is this shaping up as tomorrow could be back to being one of those indicators whose pit crew does the best? And I mean, the 3 of you especially, is it shaping up as it could be that sort of thing?
I think so, and I hope so. You know, I think that there's certainly more than a handful of teams right now that you know could win this race, as well as could be a real factor in the championship. And as I mentioned yesterday, I don't know if there's an absolute clear-cut favorite. I mean, Brad, I think over the last few weeks certainly has shown that. There's been times when Kevin's shown that. I think there's been times when we've shown that, times when Jimmy's shown that. So, and there's some others in there as well. But I think that I'm a big believer that this race in particular, the best team wins, and 90% of the time. And I think that that's also the case when it comes down to the championship. Is 90%, maybe even more of a percentage. It's the best team that wins the championship.
And for Brad, right quick, you take away one plate race a couple weeks ago, and you can't get any hotter than the 2 teams been. Different kind of tracks, but can you bring that kind of heat and momentum? Can it apply to a place like this, or are all bets off when you get here?
I think it definitely applies to a track like this. Race cars are, it takes the same basic things most weeks. Some weeks, different categories more than others, with the exception of those tracks you mentioned, the road courses and the plate tracks, which seem to be a little bit more of an outlier. But, if you're fast at a place like Pocono, you're probably going to be fast here. I thought we were great at Pocono. And if you're fast at a place like Kentucky, you're probably going to run it well at tracks like Chicago and Texas. And, so that's a good omen. Loudon, is a race in the chase. And so obviously that carries over directly. But, I think that we're in a good position to run well here and to run for a championship. And that's something I'm very proud of.
Nate, do you have a question? Nate, we'll go to Nate, Bob Pockris, and Dick.
Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. Obviously, you guys represent what everybody would consider the two best teams this year so far, Hendrick and Penske. This race has always been a place where people point to as a marker where you see teams roll out their best stuff. Have you guys seen any signs the last 2 days of other teams maybe closing the gap, or is there any reason to think that storyline of Hendrick and Penske won't continue Sunday and forward?
Well, I mean, you could also argue that we've opened up the gap because we brought our best stuff. I mean, I don't know. I think that, we certainly look at all the Hendrick cars and the Stewart-Haas cars, having Hendrick chassis, Hendrick engines, and how good they've been. And then Penske, to me, is the team to beat outside of what we have, and at times they've been better than us, at times we've been better than them. So I'm pretty sure all those groups have their best stuff here, and I wouldn't be surprised if you just keep going on down the list that everybody's brought their best stuff. But I don't know. Today I was wondering what Kevin had, because he had us all beaten. We've got the same stuff basically, and all the data that we can tap into. So and they had the field covered.
Brian, can you address that? Yeah, it's hard to answer. When you think you really understand what's going on, you never know what somebody else has in their hand. Much like if you're playing a game of poker and. You think that we have the two strongest hands with Penske and Hendrick, and certainly that's been the case to this date in the season, but you just don't know what's out there. I find it hard to believe that Gibbs is going to go a whole year without having a dominant car. It's not like them. So I'm sure they're going to catch on as the season progresses and add to that mix, and maybe even someone else, maybe an MWR or an RCR, who knows. But we're a long ways from over, and I think you can look at the past, but it's an indicator to the future, but not a complete premonition.
Go ahead, Bob, and then Dick, and then Bob.
Bob Pockris, Sporting News. Kevin talked a little bit earlier this week about kind of being in a chase mode, and that he has to kind of worry about finishes now and just can't, throw caution to the wind and gamble every week, because you need good finishes leading into the chase to have that kind of confidence and being in that chase rhythm. Would you guys subscribe to that theory over the next 6 or 7 weeks?
We're doing everything we can to win the race every weekend. That's all I know we're doing. I would say that at New Hampshire we took a little bit more risk with the fuel mileage, that we would not have done in the chase. So I think in our opinion, these guys have more wins than we do, and we want to go into the chase with as much momentum as possible. And to me, that's about getting wins. And I think our team is very consistent, and that's why we're leading the points. But I think, in those final 10 races, that's going to be important. But I think we're also going to need to step it up a bit to lead more laps and be in position to win more races as well. And that's what we're trying to do right now.
Let's go right here to Dick and then to Bob.
Jeff, back when you won that first race, they were qualifying about 175 or so, and now they're almost to 190. Does this come from the experience that teams have learned over the years, or and is 190 a possibility?
Oh yeah, it just depends on what NASCAR does. Allows us to do with the cars, and what Goodyear does with the tires. I think we would have gone even a little bit faster. Tony blew a tire here, and they probably even went a little conservative on the left side here because of that. So I think we could have gone a little bit faster had that not happened. But it's just technology. I mean, the aerodynamics of the cars are vastly improved. I laugh when I look at that 94 car, and I've had a chance to look at it, this week because we had it at our bowling tournament, and it's around here as well. And I mean, it's so funny. I mean, you talk about stock cars, that thing looks pretty stock to me compared to what we have today. I mean, today these are really race cars at its purest form. I mean, I get a chance every once in a while to talk to people outside of our industry and other forms of motorsports, and travel to other parts of the world and talk about racing. And people realize that our cars are no joke these days. They're making a lot of power, making a tremendous amount of downforce for what they are, and get through the corners really fast and aren't easy to drive either. So. I mean, today qualifying, the cars were stuck really, really good. So conditions were great, and for one lap, it was awesome. It's going to be a whole different ball game tomorrow in the race. But yeah, so much has changed. You can't even compare anything of what we did in '94 to what we're doing today.
Let's go with Bob, and then we'll go to Dave.
Jeff, to your right, you've seen this race evolve certainly over the last 21 years. Is there anything that can or should be done to bring back some of the juice, some of the interest that we had here when this thing started and within the first 5-10 years?
Well, I mean, the thing that I do find so interesting is, I mean, we've got a big blade on the back, and you would think that all the things that NASCAR's tried to do to get them to suck up, that they would. And in '94, I mean, if you remember any part of that race, especially there at the end when me and Ernie were battling, you didn't want to be the leader. The leader just got, so loose, and the guy behind him would just suck up and draft and go right by him. And we just kept swapping the lead back and forth because we were trying to put ourselves in position to be leading, basically off of turn 4. You didn't want to be leading off of 2 because the guy was gonna go by you and probably win the race. And so, that's changed a lot. And it's aerodynamics. It's always going to come down to aerodynamics and drag and downforce. And you would think we're smart enough to understand all that and how we could figure out how to come together with NASCAR and make the cars draft better. And that the Indy cars have done an excellent job here. I mean, the Indy 500 the last couple of years has been amazing with the passing and the drafting, and so. They're using technology to figure it out, and we've got to do the same. But I don't know what the answer is. I'm not an aerodynamicist. Brad is. I'm not.
Brad can't spell it, Bob.
Brad, will you answer that
He's
question?
also an engine builder, too.
Yeah. I got a lot of hats. Been in Victor Lane.
Brad, can you take a pop at that question? I mean, obviously, you haven't been here 21 years, but are there some things that can be done aerodynamically or in any other way, shape, or form to bring some juice back to this?
Whole list of things that can be done. It's just getting the whole industry together to do it. And that hasn't happened so far. So when it happens, we'll get there.
Dave Coleman, and then the young lady in the back.
Dave Coleman, Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. You guys have had all sorts of different conditions. You had a morning practice, you had some sun, you had some overcast, you had the track washed clean. Given all that, how comfortable are you that everybody really knows what they have as far as the race is concerned?
We got no idea. Yeah, we don't. That's just kind of what Jeff and I are probably both secretly hoping. I don't mean to speak for you, Jeff, that maybe Kevin has something that's not going to work when it's 90 degrees tomorrow and the track temp's 120, because right now he looks so good. But, usually that's not how it goes. But I haven't ran here for 20 years at Indy, but the 4 or 5 years I have run here, I know that 9 a.m. practice is a lot of fun to drive, not a good indicator of what you're going to see. And I would assume it'll be the same thing this weekend. As the track gets hotter, the surface really loses grip. And as the cars, you got 43 out there instead of 15, 10, 20. And the air becomes such a premium and gets all mixed up. it's going to be a whole different game. You know, these cars are generating the majority of their grip with the help of aerodynamics, and when they lose that, they're not as much fun to drive, that's for sure. But and that's part of it. That's what makes talent stand out right now in NASCAR racing, is how you handle that.
Go ahead, young lady.
No,
take a
he
shot there.
hit it. He hit it. I mean, other than just being in dirty air, that's going to be the biggest factor. But yeah, the track conditions won't be the same tomorrow. And the races, you always think you know what you have, and they drop the green, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, whoa, where'd this come from? Sometimes you nail it, and sometimes you miss it, and got to adjust.
Go ahead, young lady in the back row.
Anita Gooden, WKBI Radio Knox. On a scale of challenge, where does Indianapolis Motor Speedway fit for, this is for Jeff and for Brad?
Go ahead.
I'll go first. I like it better when you go first. I get
Why?
to smile, nod, and read Twitter and Instagram. Saw some really cool pictures. But
I don't multitask as well as you do. So
yeah, you do. You just don't know it. The challenge of Indy on a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's one of the hardest tracks we run. Tracks that come to mind when you say that, I think of Sonoma. I think it's probably the hardest place we run. I think of the plate races and, trying not to make a mistake for so long and cause the big one, which I've done. And I think of those type of places, but Indy's, right up there with them, with the challenge of trying to get yourself to keep up with the track as it's changing. The track has so many spots where you can get in trouble. Pit road stands out being so narrow, and always an issue. Restarts into turn one, blind, and guys going through the grass. And there's a lot of challenges here at Indy, and it's I would say definitely in the top probably 5 or 10 percentile of difficult tracks, but maybe not the hardest, but right up there.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a very challenging track. I think the more corners that you have at a track, the more challenging it is. And then if you throw in shifting into that, then that makes a whole other set of challenges. So I think the road courses are the most challenging. I'd say then Pocono with, it has 3 corners, not 4, but 3, and then you have shifting there. So it's a pretty challenging racetrack. And then I would say this would fall, after those. So yeah, I'd say top 4 or 5 is one of the most challenging. And I love the challenge that this track has. It's difficult sometimes to pass aerodynamically, but you can do some things on how and where you pick your spots to pass at, and I love that challenge.